We have some people here joining us today. I will tell you, well, I'll give you a little intro and then I'll tell you how many actually registered for today's lovely workshop. But for those that don't know me, I don't know how you wouldn't, because I've been doing this now for 7 years. It's super exciting. My name is Anna Kavan and I'm the brand ambassador for Contrology, which none of this would be possible without the amazing Ken Endelman, CEO and nice guy, who is here with us today. And we also have two other amazing guests, our presenter, Trey Fry of KineticMKE Pilates Studio, who has a model, student, business partner, life partner, physical therapist, violinist, apparently. Viola.
Viola.
Amazing friend Garrett with us today, helping us out, and also Nicole Martin, one of our authorized demo centers in San Diego, Ritual Pilates, as our guest panelist today. So we're bringing you a special workshop on building the star around the Contrology studio. And I'm really excited to share this with you because we had 175 people register. Right now with us today, there are 23 people, but many of you sign up to get the recording because Friday afternoon isn't always the best time to join us, but we're glad that you signed up to even get the recording and watch it later. So really excited to get this starting. If you haven't been with us before for one of these Contrology labs, we put on our lab coats, which are kind of like our thinking caps, so that we can really dig down in the exercises and come together and let Trey, in this instance, will take the exercise and show it to us, break it down, take it apart, and kind of build it back up again in the studio. Nicole will add some insights, and Ken will always be there to support us with the equipment side of it. So we let Trey kind of kick it off for us with the exercise and show it how it's done. And then we would like to invite you to ask questions, and you can ask them throughout the workshop. So if you want to pop them in the chat, if they come up during the workshop and they're relevant, and I can have either Trey answer them, or maybe if they're equipment related, I'll leave them for the end. But I will just jump in and ask Trey to answer them. We'll do that in real time. If they are ones for the end, we'll leave them for the end. If there's something that maybe Ken would speak to regarding the equipment, we'll do that. So we'll have time during and also after for your questions. And that's kind of how we do it. So let's get started. Well, let me just have everyone say a little hi first. So Trey, you want to wave and say hi?
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. Happy Friday. It's a nice sunny day here in Milwaukee. And I'm excited to talk about the star. And then we have,
I know Garrett can't hear us, but if he wants to wave. Because he doesn't have AirPods on. Ken, you want to wave to everyone?
Hello, everybody. Good to see you.
And Nicole from San Diego.
Hi again. Thank you for having me. I always learn so much from these. I've watched all the recordings. I love that you guys do this.
Yeah, and you know what? We'd love to do this as just a community builder and just to provide a service to you all. So if you like what you see today, go to the Contrology website, contrology.pilates.com, and under resources, we have an events tab, which lists events that either we are hosting or other people are hosting that we think might benefit you. And we have event recordings. So if you go to event recordings, you'll see all the past events, and you can just tune in when you want and follow along. But I say we get started, right? So I'm going to throw this over to Trey. It's all you, unless there's a question, and then I'll just kind of pop in. Okay.
awesome.
Let's do it.
So again, thank you everyone for joining. So the star is considered an advanced exercise on the Reformer, but my goal, my aim for today is to be able to look from the really ground up, looking at building skills that are inherent in the exercise so that we hold the space and the potential for our clients to potentially one day be able to do the star on the Reformer. We'll have a grand finale and do the star toward the end, but let's just start looking at some basic skills. We're here on the Contrology Cadillac, which we're going to start using as a mat. So Garrett's going to set up side lying, and we're first going to look at the sidekick series. And Garrett's going to set up like we normally would, lying on his side. And the curriculum standard for the exercise is we're generally down on the mat, which is a great place to start. The legs are forward. Now, in the star, it's imperative that we really start working on building lateral chain strength. So as a progression or a variation of just the setup of the side kicks, what we can start to explore is actually going into more of an active side bend. So Garrett's going to go into a right side bend and start to elevate his rib cage off the floor. So we're taking away a point of contact of the rib cage on the mat and are really relying on the elbow and the pelvis and the legs to be the contact points to create a sense of grounding. So alone with this setup, we're asking the whole sideline of the body start to really become more active and alive. And then Garrett can do a few side kicks, but we can do a few front and back. We all know these variations, of course. But just allowing the bottom of the body to start to lift off the mat from the beginning, we can start to really build some nice strength here. And then to progress it further, we can remove the contact point of his left hand and bring it behind the head as well. And then we already have a little shaking going on. This is awesome. And so that is a super simple way. It's one of my kind of first date, you can totally rest. It's one of my first date places to start building some side body strength in the goal, the hope, the desire to be able to do the exercise, the star on the reformer. That's the beautiful thing about the system of Pilates is that all the exercises are interconnected as are the apparatus. So we can really use the beauty of the system that's been given to us to progress our clients according to both their goals, wants, needs, desires, and of course our Pilates goals as teachers. So another step we can take on the mat is the kneeling side kicks. So Garrett will come to kneeling on the Cadillac, setting himself up in the center of the mat. We might go a little bit off center if we have some apparatus obstacles. Garrett's a tall person, he's 6'3". So start with his hands behind his head. And something I love doing before even teaching the curriculum standard of the exercise is making the transition into the exercise an exercise. So Garrett can take his right hand down to the mat as his left leg extends out. He'll kind of mark the position. And here we can definitely see the star, this kind of radiating out of the center. And then he'll come back up to his start position, kneeling with both hands behind the head. And then he can alternate. He can bring his left hand down, his right leg out, marking the position and having this sense of really reaching out from his center and then coming back up. So that alone, just making the transition an exercise can be a really potent way to start building strength, especially strength weight bearing through the upper body, through the lateral line, through the obliques, and then we can progress into the curriculum standard of the exercise. So he'll have his hands behind his head, reach one hand down and the opposite leg out. And then the leg, of course, goes forward and backward. Now the exercise is usually these days taught with the torso staying relatively quiet, which would serve us going into the star, but it's also really helpful and also just for novelty and variety to do more of the archival or historical version of the exercise. So as the leg goes forward, he has permission to go into a little flexion of the spine and then to center. And then as he goes back, he has permission to do a little extension. So of course, generally we're going to teach more, you can come up and rest. Generally, we will teach more of a stability bias first, but knowing that eventually we can allow some morphing of the spine, some more dynamic movements. And then, of course, beyond from the kneeling side kicks, we can start preparing the body on the mat with the mermaid. So Garrett can sit. I'm actually going to backtrack for a moment. So just like I like to make the transition into kneeling side kicks and exercise, we also could make the transition into the mermaid in exercise. So Garrett will reach his arms forward. This is something from my teacher, Lori Coleman Brown. It's a little Lori Lottie's. So he will aim his right side of his pelvis to the mat as he sits down, only going as low as he's able to bring himself back up. And once he's reached the mark, he'll come back up tall to center, and then the other side. This is a really great way to prepare, especially the hip joints, the pelvis, and the soft tissue surrounding those areas for the exercise, the mermaid, because the setup, the kind of curriculum standard classic setup can be challenging for clients that have tight hips. And then eventually he'll make his way down, sit on one hip. Great. And of course, we can help as teachers. I'm going to have you scoot down a bit more this way, please, sir. So the legs are stacked-ish. He'll have his right arm to his ear. And then he'll bend up and over. And then he comes out. And have a moment here with both arms out to really work the body, the side body, and then come down onto his forearm, stretch the opposite side. The mermaid can be quite nice to start building the skills for higher level exercises. You know, Joan the Mermaid's considered in a curriculum setting more of like an intermediate exercise, and again, go over. That's it. And then he'll reach out and then reach away. And of course, we could challenge the strength over time that the bottom arm could start sliding out further and further. And then he'll come up from there. Nice to have a helping hand as a client with a teacher helping you, and then go over. Great. And of course, the grand finale of the mermaid is to bring the hand to the opposite ear, and he's going to spiral toward his knees to get more of a stretch through the posterior sling system. And then he'll come up. Great. And then really the mermaid is an add-in to the historical system, and it's a preparation for the side bend, which Mr. Pilates gave us. So Garrett will set up for the side bend, scoot a little further out this way. The legs, in return to life, the legs are stacked, one foot over the other. The knees are a little bent, and the arm is by the side. If we want to increase stability, of course, we could take the top leg, cross it in front, gives us more contact points, so more inherent stability via the setup of the exercise. Let's try stacked and go from there. And we can stack the ankles. Awesome. So from this position, he's looking down to the hands on. There are many patterns to this exercise. This is a good kind of like first state pattern. He'll reach up into a side bend, into a side plank, being mindful of the push through bar, and the arm will reach over and he'll look down to his bottom hand and try to really elevate his pelvis. So he's just really stretching. You can see where the mermaid helps to build this exercise. And then he'll bring himself back down, bringing his pelvis to the mat, bending the knees, bringing the hand over the side and looking toward his left hand. So there's a little drama with where the head goes in the exercise. And again, he'll reach up and stretch over. That's it. And then coming down from there, taking a seat. Fantastic. So those handful of exercises on the mat are a really great place to start skill building for the star, start really building the strength that we need to help hold ourselves in a side plank position, to strengthen the lateral chain, the lateral line. And I want to ask Nicole, since she's here as our guest panelist, anything to share from the mat? Any extra glitter to throw onto this that you found you having success with mat work specifically for building for the star?
Yeah. I love that you started with the side kick series, building the bottom leg as your foundation. I feel like that's a great place, and you need that for the star, to inform the body that that standing leg is the working leg, and then build that up throughout the side. So I love starting with that. And then, yeah, it was brilliant for you to incorporate the transition into the mermaid, your awareness of where you are in space and how to hold yourself together as you go into that side bend. We want to be safe on the reformer. So I love that. Um, and then I've got to say that my success with the side bend has been completely due to the padding on the Cadillac of the Contrology Cadillac. I used to feel so lost in terms of my wrist, my elbow, and my shoulder, and I could not access my back whatsoever. So just a little shout out to the upholstery work on the Contrology line and giving us that feedback so that we can build up to doing it with a spring and know where we're going with our back.
I think that's such a great share, Nicole. Thank you. I think that's one of the many things I appreciate about the Contrology apparatus is the high density foam. I think we've all felt with other apparatus that with a fluffier foam, there is that tendency to sink down into it. So not only are we having to deal with a lot more compression through the wrist, which is not always comfortable for ourselves or for our clients, but we lose the ability to really rely on that ground reaction force, that counter thrust of pressing down, and using that to aid us in the exercise. So the high density foam that comes standard with all the Contrology apparatus is incredible. Thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So our next stop, since we're here on the Cadillac, we're going to look at a few exercises that can help us build the strength for the star on the reformer. So our first stop is the side sit up. And again, this is an exercise that can have many patterns. The one I want to show today is Garrett's going to come in and the bottom foot, the ball of the foot is going to press into the front of the pole, and then the top foot's going to hook behind the pole. And we're going to take the rollback bar. Some of you might be wondering why I have two rollback bars here. I do a thing that my teacher does where we have the standard rollback bar, the standard Contrology rollback springs, and then I have a second rollback bar that has the Contrology armchair springs, which are lighter, just to give more options throughout the exercises for our clients. Garrett's a strong man, so we're going to use the standard. I'm having the springs hooked up from the usual placement, but for certain bodies, we might find it more advantageous to hook the spring lower where the leg springs usually connect. For a lot of my female clients, I tend to go a little lower. It helps dampen the force of the spring, but either or, as always in Pilates, we teach the body in front of us. So we make decisions based on what our clients need. So Garrett's going to place his left hand in the middle of the bar, his right hand on top. I might scoot you a little bit closer in if possible. Great. So just like the mermaid, he's really orienting more into the side of his pelvis, and the hands are stacked and the bar is on top of the head. So we're starting in a side bend, and then he will use his whole body to stretch the spring open, aiming potentially to come all the way down to the mat. And then he will allow the spring to indulge him into a side bend to return. And again, he stretches long, and then he partners with the spring to bring himself back up. Excellent. Let's try a little more rhythm. So I'll go out and then up. Yes. Out and then up. One more time. And then as a grand finale for the side sit up, he'll reach the arms up and stretch to straight arms and try his best to indulge the side bend more, the whole while smiling and enjoying. So that is the side sit up with the rollback bar. Again, there are many patterns. This is one of many. There is a more archival pattern where the legs are straight and staggered on the poles. You could use the Cunha board for that as well. this particular version is more similar to the mermaid. It's definitely more accessible for most of our clients. And then kind of a unique exercise is something called the calendar mermaid. This is one of Kathy Grant's gifts to us. So I'm taking a leg spring, one of the Contrology leg springs, and I'm hooking it up to the hook that the rollback bar goes on. And I have the spring behind the body rather than in front. So Garrett's gonna scoot out so his legs can be straight and stacked. His legs are forward on the pole. It's not super specific about if the legs are stacked. The top leg could be behind the pole. It could be in front of the pole. It is allowed to travel somewhat. And he's going to take the leg spring into his left hand, and then he'll thread his right hand on top, and then trying his best to keep his legs straight, and the arms can straighten up to the ceiling. So reach the arms, he'll stretch the spring out long, and then come up from there. Yes. And again, he'll reach out. So this is in the same family as the side sit-ups. And then reach up from there. That's the way. One more time. Third time's the charm. He'll reach out and then come back up from there. So the calendar mermaid. It's funny, I was having a lesson yesterday. I have the spring with Kim Hirosh, who was Kathy's assistant in the 70s and 80s at the Henry Bendel studio. And she threw this exercise at me and I was like, oh yeah, the calendar mermaid. And she just had this look on her face. And, in that era, in that time, it didn't have a name, but it became called the calendar mermaid and during the NYU era. So, the old days did not have a name, but became known as the calendar mermaid because someone brought in a picture from a calendar of a mermaid, which looked like the exercise. So that's how it got its name. And then we're going to move to the push-through bar. So we're going to set the push-through bar up with a spring from above. Garrett's going to come kneeling, and he'll have his right hand forward of his shoulder on the bar and his left arm out to the side of the room. So the press down is often considered a preparation that we do before doing the mermaid, but it can be a really excellent exercise to build arm integration into the torso, the arm to the back connection. So with a tall posture, he'll press the bar down and then come back up. So the torso is going to stay still, and it's just the arm. Great, great, great. And then I would love it as you press down to not overpower the spring, but try to really partner the spring. Yes, and then return. Usually we do about 3 to 5 repetitions of the press down. And of course, we could use it as a preparation for the mermaid, but it could be a great standalone exercise to teach the skill of building the arm to the back connection and upper extremity integration. And then from there, we'll go into the mermaid. So he'll reach his left arm to his ear and then press the bar down, side bend, and then return. And of course, the mermaid can also be done seated on the Cadillac with a short box on the floor and the feet on the box. But we were already kneeling, so here we are. And one more time. Great. And then just to throw a little variation in, he'll bring his left hand behind his head. And then as he presses the bar down, there will be a moment where it's available to him to start sneaking his left leg out to the side. And move the rollback bars out of the way. And then he can start to lift his left leg. So here we definitely can see the star happening. And this alone could be the exercise. And then he could bend the knee in and then bring the bar up and come back to a start position. If we want to take this variation further, he can press the bar down, sneak the leg out. There is definitely a really organic timing that can happen here. And then of course we could add in the variations from the kneeling side kicks, which are usually front back, circle, bicycles. So all the things that we know from the mat. And then he'll come back up from there. Excellent. And then from there, I'm going to move the push through bar. You can let go, please. I'm going to move the push through bar to the outside. I'm going to adjust the camera so that we have the availability to see this. I'm going to turn off my video for a moment so no one gets vertigo as I transition. But the push through bar from the outside is, there's a lot of vocabulary that exists here. We don't often see it. It's not on a curriculum list generally, but this is definitely stuff that is part of our tradition and it does exist. So Garrett is going to face the camera and he is going to hold the bar with his left hand. He's going to scoot out until his arm is straight. Most of this material does not have a name. So I like to call this one the press up. It's similar to the long stretch with like a sideways long stretch. So as he presses the bar up, he'll lean his posture and then he'll return to a tall, upright posture. And that's really all it is. And I'm going to say all it is in air quotes because it is quite challenging, but it is an excellent place. You can keep going, please. It's an excellent place to keep or start building the skills for the star, especially in that moment of pressing the carriage out. Now, this exercise is usually part of a larger series, so I'm teasing this one piece out as a way to skill build for the star. And return. All right, and you can let go of the bar. And then, Nicole, anything to add from the Cadillac exercises?
Yes. Side bending is so tough. I'm just all the different things he's gone through, he's hanging in there, he's doing great. It does ask so much of our whole body. I love that you mentioned in the push through bar, using the spring to support. And that's so important when doing this exercise. You cannot fight the spring at all in the reformer. It's got to be integrated into your body and used in a supportive way. So I like that you talked about that when he did the push through bar version of the star. And I love the outside of the Cadillac work with the push through bar. There's so much to be done there. And that side stretch that you just did reminded me of the one that Jay taught us of holding on, or I learned it from Jay, holding on to the top of the Cadillac and leaning into that side bend. And just requiring so much of our full body. We've got to use everything for it to feel right. So I'm loving this process, and I'm appreciating side bend in a whole new way, seeing it done all these different ways.
Yeah, and I think that idea of partnering the spring and really being in a sense of like a synergy with the spring is something that's been lost in Pilates. I think so often ourselves and our clients work against the spring, or we work with the spring in a way it's kind of like we treat it like a weight. And I think that's something that was really special from Kathy Grant's teaching. It was really, really, really learning how to be in relationship to the spring so that we can let go of excess tension, tap into our center, and yeah, really allow Pilates to do us versus us do Pilates.
Yeah,
So our
well
next
said.
stop is going to be the Wunda chair. So I'm going to again turn my camera off while we move the camera. So hang tight, everyone. And all right. So here we are, another spot in the studio. We have lots of our Contrology apparatus. And we're going to start in the Wunda chair. And the first exercise we're going to do is the side leg press, which is, I would consider more of like a archival or historical exercise. You don't see it taught in most training programs these days. So I'm taking a mat to the floor, and we're going to be on one spring on the bottom. Of course, we all know that we have curriculum standards for spring settings, but every person is different. And so we adjust the springs to work with the body in front of us. But generally for this exercise, we don't want a spring that's too heavy. So Garrett's gonna side lie. He'll be on his right forearm, and his legs will be carried forward like the side kicks. And come a little closer. And then the bottom leg is definitely forward, and the top leg is going to go onto the pedal. So he'll have his left hand behind his head, and he's going to start in a right side bend so that his left ribs are opening up to the ceiling. And then as he opens the spring and pulls the pedal toward him, he will left side bend, and there will be some pelvic shifting as well, some hip hiking. And then as the spring closes, he'll return to the start position in a right side bend. And that is the exercise. And he'll pull the pedal towards. And this is more of the setup that is seen in the pictures of Mr. Pilates doing the exercise. You will also see this exercise done with the bottom hand behind the head, very similar to the side kick series set up on the mat. No, I think we're good with this one. I really like the weight bearing through the forearm. Again, it is really helpful for building that sense of side body strength, especially through the shoulder girdle, upper body, and the torso in our quest for the star. So that is the side leg press on the Wunda chair. And then our next exercise is the
Trey, can I just
fish.
ask a question? That looks really hard.
Yeah, it does look a little crazy,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Is that really hard for Garrett?
I'm gonna say it's actually a very doable exercise. I think Garrett has some incredible range of motion in this exercise that not all of either ourselves or our
I
clients
know,
are
because
going to
he's doing
have.
really well, and I'm just imagining like the chair, the pedals moving quite a bit, and he's actually bending quite a
Yes.
bit, but I can't imagine most
Yes.
people having that much success.
Yeah, I'm never desirous with my clients of anyone having this amount of range or even the
Mhm.
pedal moving that much. I mean,
Right.
for a civilian client, you know,
Mhm.
that's a term that Ron Fletcher would always use for a non-pro.
Yeah.
Um, you might open a couple coils of the spring and
Okay.
the pedal will barely move, but it is very doable.
Mhm.
Um, and like every exercise, we can build it over time.
Sure.
So yeah, thank you, Anna.
Yeah. Looks great.
Okay, so we're gonna have Garrett come up for a moment. We're gonna move the mat out of the way, and I'm gonna move the chair. So the curriculum standard spring setting for the fish is usually one in the middle. Garrett is quite tall, and I for this body, I'm gonna use one spring from the top. And I think something that maybe has been forgotten, and I mentioned this earlier when Nicole and I were talking about considering springs, and it's that whole idea of like really partnering with the spring. The Wunda chair offers us a really unique opportunity because we can, with a one spring setting, we can be mindful of which spring we're choosing, which is definitely something that Kathy taught. I have the spring that's coming from behind, and that is going to definitely speak more, has the potential to speak more to the back of the body. If we, for our clients, want to speak more to the front of their system, we might use one spring in front of them. And so if I don't like what I see, maybe we'll change and we'll play with it, and Garrett can always give feedback. So we're going to move the chair out, and Garrett's going to come and lie on top of the chair facing the camera with his right hand on the pedal. He's in a side lying position. He's going to find a side plank. The legs are straight out. The left arm's down by the side. The pedal will start down, generally down-ish. Doesn't have to be all the way down. Garrett has long arms. And the gaze can be toward the top hand. So there is a little twist happening. And then he closes the spring and continues to side bend. And then he will open the spring and return back to the start position. And again, so his legs are traveling a little forward. So I'm going to be here to help spot the legs as he side bends. And then he opens the spring and returns. One more time. And back down. So the fish. Now we also will see, you can come up for a moment. This is the setup that is in the pictures of Mr. Pilates doing the exercise, side lying on top. You will also see this exercise taught lying on a diagonal on top of the chair as well, which can often be a great way to start prepping for the teaser twist. You can go from the fish on the diagonal and start to play with rolling and building that specific exercise, but that's a whole other Contrology lab. So from the fish, we're going to stay on one spring on the top and go into the 2-arm press. And so he's going to lie on his stomach, facing the pedal, and roughly set himself up so that as he presses the pedal down, his shoulders are going to be a little forward of his wrist, especially for his height. And then, so this is great. I want to take a moment and just look at the starting position for this body. Garrett has long arms. He's a tall person. So we can already see with this setup how the torso is a little higher than the pelvis. We'll do a few reps like this, and I'm going to show a little like zhuzh I would do for this kind of a body type. So Garrett will bend his elbows and then straighten the arms. So it's important for an exercise like the STAR to be able to build a strong trunk stability. So this is a simple enough exercise that we can start giving to clients. It's a great preparatory exercise for the push-up series on the mat, but it's helping to connect the arms to the torso to build a sense of stability through the trunk that we are definitely going to need when we start challenging those skills in the STAR on the Reformer. Okay, great. Do a few more for me. I'm going to grab something that was going to help us judge the exercise. So I'm grabbing a couple of the moon boxes from the Contrology folding mat. So Garrett's going to come up for a moment, and I'm going to start with one moon box, and I'm just going to place it on top of the chair. We'll see how that looks. We might add a second one. So I'm just building up his pelvis so that when he's in a start position, so that to me that looks much better already. Yes. We're just kind of building up the apparatus to meet this particular body. Excellent. And then let's see what it looks like adding one more. So he's going to come up from there. We could also use this setup for exercises like the swan dive as well. So one last go. I love using the Contrology moon boxes, either from the folding mat or from the high mats, to help give us, this is my favorite personally. I think you can see how all of his body segments are threaded on the same strand now. When we started with kind of the curriculum standard of the exercise, him just on top of the chair, we didn't get that same threading of energy through the body. So this is great. So the 2-arm press, and we added a little zhuzh with the Contrology moon boxes from the folding mat. And then Garrett will come off the chair. And now our next exercise in building the STAR is the pull up to the side. So the usual spring settings are one from the top, one from the bottom. I'm going to give Garrett one top, one middle to help support his weight in relationship to the springs. So Garrett's going to come from the front of the chair, as a safety, we generally want to mount from the front. So Garrett will put his hands on the front of the chair first. He will then put his left foot on the pedal, press the pedal down, and then he'll pivot to face the camera. So he'll turn. Now his left foot's going to go to the middle of the pedal. The hands are going to go to the back and front of the chair, and generally want to be stacked. And then he'll straighten his left leg, and we'll start the two legs together. There are many patterns and we'll show a few. So he will lift the pedal up and then he'll push the pedal down. I think so often with this exercise as teachers, we're very insistent that the shoulder girdle is parallel to the side of the chair. And I'm gonna say it's great actually to have a little twist happening, so that as he comes up, he will untwist a little and level himself off. And then as he presses down, he's giving himself the permission to be a little we'll say unsquared, because nothing in nature is totally square. Great. So you will often see this exercise as well with the outside foot in a coupe. Definitely an influence to the front of the ankle, please. Definitely an influence from the Romana lineage, for a little bit of ballet influence. And Anna, I'm curious to know how you learned this exercise back in the day. And then the historical version of Mr. Pilates is the leg out to the side, a little forward of the body. So again, a little reminiscent of the kneeling side kick, but there is the star in this as well. So the pull up to the side. And then to exit for safety, he will face the chair again and bring his hands onto the front. The hands stay on until the spring is closed, and then he comes to standing. Anna, I'm curious to hear how you learned the leg setup.
Like that with a coupe.
The coupe, yeah. And then the progression would be, out to the side.
Lay up. And I have to feel
Yeah.
for Garrett, he's doing everything on one side. He's going to feel like very one-sided.
We'll balance him out later.
Yeah.
We'll balance him out later for sure. Yeah, the coupe can be really nice to help getting to the seat connection, to like the wrapping connection. But the parallel can be quite nice, and then eventually progressing it out to the side. Now, the grand finale on the Wunda chair is actually going to be the star. So he is toweling off a little bit, and we're going to enter the exercise the same way he got on for the pull-up side. So he'll put his hands on first. He'll press the pedal down with his left foot. And then once the pedal's down, he'll turn to face the camera. Now his left hand's going to be at the middle back of the chair. And then his right hand's behind his head. He's doing his best to kind of orient himself to the camera. And then yes, the full exercise, the leg is out to the side. I think it can be very helpful for our clients to start. And often with this exercise, for quite some time, the pedal will not even move. They're just using imagination and will and desire. But eventually there is the potential for the pedal to lift a little and then lower down. We got a grunt from Garrett, and then he'll lift. And a nice spot for the exercise is I have a hand on the shoulder, I have a hand on the leg, and I'm right behind him, so that if what hits the fan, we have our client. One more time, please. And then down. And then he'll bring the leg down. He'll turn to face the chair. He'll exit facing forward for safety. He'll close the spring from there. And so those are some selections I've made from the Contrology Wunda chair to help us build the star. Nicole, do you have anything to share?
I really like that you chose the swan. It's my favorite place to have clients really feel that their arms are just an extension of their back. And I like the way you got him level. I have not thought about putting the boxes on top. I usually stick them under the pedal, but I like having the option to do both. But yeah, you could really see that the reach of his arms, or his back just kept extending beyond as he was controlling the spring. I feel like that's my favorite place to teach clients, that their arms start at their low back and they follow that line out, which you need to do for the star for sure.
For sure.
So,
Awesome. So our
and I like
next
that you
date
got
is
to
going to
work
be
his
the
other side. Sorry. I like that you got to
yes.
work your
I
other side,
promise
Garrett.
everyone we will balance them off later. We did do some
We
rehearsing
know you're
earlier,
keeping
so
track.
Pilates teachers keeping track, OCD never. So I'm gonna move this guy out of the way, and then we're gonna grab the spine corrector and put it down. So we are gonna have a profile view of the spine corrector. And our first exercise is going to be the mermaid. So Garrett will sit facing the camera, and he'll have his right seat into the step and his legs around the side with the knees bent and stacked. So for the mermaid here, this can be a really great place to make the mermaid on the mat more accessible to our clients. The apparatus really helps hold the body. And especially for clients that have tighter hips, this can be such a nice way to either introduce the exercise or use the apparatus to support the body. Now, of course, we could put the body into more of a Z sit with this leg back. That can also help with pelvic alignment. But the curriculum standard is usually the legs stacked. So just like on the mat, he'll reach his right arm to his ear. Is that your right arm? That's a total Kathy Grant style correction. And then he'll reach over and yes. And then what's nice about the spine corrector is he'll bring his hand and arm down to the barrel, and then he can use it as a helper as he reaches his left arm up and stretches over. And of course, the shape of the barrel really invites a nice opening of the body. And then he'll come up from there. And what's really valuable here is the transition moments for building the star. So he's building some nice strength and integration through the lateral chain. Yes, and then out and over. So we have the mermaid here, and then he'll come up. And then the next exercise is the side sit up on the barrel. So again, a lot of this work that we're using through the studio is to build side body strength. So he'll stack his hands behind the head. I'm going to show a few different setups. This is actually one of my favorites, is to have the legs like this. I was just working with my teacher in Seattle recently, and she said that back in the day, this is actually what was considered the basic setup, which I think is a little comical because it does not feel basic. But Garrett will go out as far as he can with strength and then come back up. It's not exciting or Instagram worthy, but the work is true. Yes, we got a sigh of desperation from our model. And one more time. Yes, and then of course, to make it more accessible, we can straighten the top leg out. So it's more similar to how we see it often on the short box on the Reformer. We could put a strap under the client's ankle if we're on either a folding mat or a high mat. I'm here spotting the ankle to make the exercise more enjoyable, might be a term, more accessible for sure. That's it. Great. So we have the side sit up here. And then Garrett's going to come to standing, and we're going to show actually how to use the Contrology spine corrector to help build some more weight bearing through the side body. So Garrett's going to stand in front of the barrel, and he'll reach his arms up. He'll round down. So this is a way to start working the side bend from the mat on the barrel. And then he'll step out into a plank. And then he'll turn and face the camera with his left hand pivoting more to the middle of the barrel, his right arm down by his side. And just like the mat, he'll lower his pelvis down and look toward his right hand. And then he'll lift up into a side bend, reaching his right arm overhead, looking down to his bottom hand, and really lifting the pelvis up to try to accentuate that opening of the top side of the body. And then again, he'll lower down and then come back up and over. And one more time. And then reach over. So biasing the body a little bit more upright using the barrel can make the exercise lower stakes for ourselves or for our clients. And then he'll bring his hands to the barrel, walk his feet in, roll up tall, arms with the ears to come up tall, and the arms will circle down. We can also start building the choreography of the star here from the reformer. So he'll enter the same way. The arms come up, they come down, hands to the barrel. He'll walk out into a plank position. And then he'll turn and face the camera and have his arm by his side. So we're working the arm and leg patterns here. So the top arm and top leg lift to the ceiling twice, and down and up and down. And then the arm and leg go forward and then to the center, arm forward, leg back, and then to the center. And then he would bring his right hand to the barrel. In the studio, not on camera, we would then go to the other side and do the other side. And then he would walk his feet in, roll up tall, arms to ears, and then arms circle down for the grand finale. Perfect. So those are a few exercises from the Contrology spine corrector that we can use to start building skills and strength for the star and the reformer. Nicole, anything that you want to add or share? I think Nicole's,
no,
oh, there we go.
yeah,
You're unmuted now.
I have nothing to add. It was
Nothing
like,
to add.
yeah, I liked seeing how the spine corrector helped his hips stay in place as he went into and out of the position. That was helpful. But that's it.
Awesome. So now we have the Contrology ladder barrel. We're going to show a few exercises here that can be really valuable in our quest for the star. So the first one is the side sit up. There are many different ways to set the exercise up. Garrett is quite tall, so we're going to set him up with the feet down. So he will set himself up facing the camera. You would definitely see different leg variations. I prefer the rung leg backward and the barrel leg forward, pelvis into the barrel, the hands are behind the head. So just this position alone, we could start our clients here as the preparation, building strength through the sides of the body. And then the curriculum standard of the exercise is he'll reach himself over the barrel and then up and then bend toward the rungs and repeat. Yes. And as he reaches over, I'm going to ask that he doesn't go quite so far. So he's going to reach around the barrel rather than fall into it and then right back up. So there's not a moment of lingering down there. So reach without lingering and come up. And one more time. And up. Excellent. Now we could also change the setup slightly so he can bring his left leg to the bottom rung. And I think most of us know the curriculum standard of the exercise. This leg is straight. And the curriculum standard, the progression is he would hook his foot underneath with a straight leg and then facing the camera, hands behind the head. We'd probably want to move the barrel out for this body, but I want to show an alternative to this leg being turned out because sometimes with a tighter hip, this can create a little bit of a twist to the pelvis and lumbar spine, but he can actually straighten the leg, tuck it through, and then he can press up into the rung to help really build this whole lateral line strength. The hands could be behind the head. He'll reach out and really using the strength of his legs and the pressing up into the rung to help build a continuous line of strength through the side of his body. and then back up from there. So that's just an alternative setup that I found really successful for certain bodies, but particularly for building that side body strength that we want for the star. Now Garrett's gonna come from the outside of the barrel for the scissors and the bicycle. So we're challenging the lateral chain strength even more so. So he's going to grab a rung with his bottom hand and a rung with the top hand. At the end of the day, any rung is an option. He's going to scoot himself in slightly so the elbows are wide and he's pulling the rung apart. We're aiming to stack the body in a straight line. And like the side kicks, he will scissor the top leg backward, the bottom leg forward, and then change. And then scissor and change and scissor and change and scissor and change. And then for the bicycle, he'll pedal both legs simultaneously. He'll start in a scissor, he'll split, and then pedal both legs at the same time, and then reach back, and then reach back. Yes, and reach and reach and reach and reverse and go reach and up, pedal, up, pedal, up, pedal. It's a great thing for the brain and nervous system. Yes. Okay, and then he'll come up and have a moment. And the last thing on the ladder barrel is the lobster. It's in the fish family, the sea creature family. So similar setup, but he, instead of being on the top rung, he's going to walk down a little lower. The safety with this exercise is that, and I will tell my clients this, you have to use your upper body or you will fall. I think that we need to make our clients understand the safety aspect. So it starts in the fish, he lifts his leg up, and then at a certain point, legs staying together, he has to go into a little hip flexion to let his legs go higher, and then back through the fish, and legs go down as low as they can, and then he'll lift his legs up, and then higher into little hip flexion, and then down, really using the upper body to help as well, and down, and then he'll slide himself off. And of course, in real time in the studio, we will be doing both sides, but for the sake of today, showing one side. So those are a few selections from the ladder barrel that we can use to our benefit to help strengthen and skill build for the star. Nicole, anything that you want to add? Awesome. So our next
No,
stop.
good.
Oh, okay. I
Go.
saw the head turn. Our
Good.
next stop is the reformer. So I had a few things on the electric chair and the stall bars and the push-up handles and the baby chair, but I'm looking at time and trying to be considerate. So another day for that. We're going to turn to the reformer. I'm going to turn the camera off for a moment while I reposition the camera. And we get our great afternoon sun here coming through the windows. And here we are. So the first thing we're going to do as a preparation for the star is an exercise from my friend Blossom Leilani Crawford. She calls it the baby star. So Garrett's going to come and set himself up so that his left shin is going to be stacked into the shoulder block. The headrest is down, his right leg will be long into the well, and his left hand's on the foot bar. I have 4 springs on, so the carriage is not going to move. He's going to lift himself up into a side kneeling position, thumb with the fingers, and the arm is by the side. So this is a great thing. The carriage is not going to move here, but we can use this position to build strength through the left side of the body in this case, and we can work on skill building the pattern of the arms and legs. So he will lift the arm and leg up and down twice. And then the arm and leg go forward, mindful of the frame. And then back, arm forward, leg back. And center. And then rest. So we could repeat that and do a couple of reps of that pattern. But for time's sake, we're going to have Garrett step off. Garrett's going to grab the carriage block for me. And we're gonna block this out to second gear to best suit his height. And we'll drop it in for second gear. I'm gonna move the gear bar. And we're going to 2 springs on. And the next step for building the star and the reformer is the balance control side. So a lot of us know the balance control front, which is like a push-up with the hands on the shoulder blocks, and the balance control back facing up to the ceiling. The balance control side can be a great place to start preparing and skill building the exercise. So Garrett's gonna place his his left hand on the foot bar. He's gonna bring his left foot angled, and then his right foot will go forward angled as well. I'm gonna help hold the carriage still as he mounts into the exercise. And then I would probably want his left hand more to the middle of the foot bar. And he's gonna orient himself facing the camera with his right arm down by his side. That's finding a nice long line in his body. So then he'll start to press the carriage out, eyes are straight ahead. And then he'll close the spring. That's the way. So he's just moving in a range where he has success in returning the spring closed. One more time. And returning in, and then he can step off for a moment, recombobulate. Excellent. So that's the balance and control side. Of course, just as a preparation, the carriage does not have to move. And we can even teach the exercise with all 4 springs on to eliminate any safety concerns with the carriage moving. Over time progressing to building the movement through the shoulder girdle and building the strength through the side body. Now, we could progress the balance and control side. I like to start with it because we have both feet down. So inherently with more contact points, it creates more stability. And then into what they call the star preparation, he'll bring his left hand to the bar, his left foot diagonal. And now he'll have, is that your left foot? And then he'll bring his right leg. And he really, when he mounts, he really wants to put his weight onto the bar. So this leg is already starting to straighten. And then he brings this leg on top of the shoulder block, resting, arm down by the side, looking straight ahead. And then he'll press the carriage out a little. So by having just the left foot as the weight bearing foot, the right foot's kind of doing more of a pulling into the midline. We've taken away the extra contact point from the balance and control side and are just adding a further challenge. And then he would step off, come to standing. And then of course, our grand finale is the curriculum pattern for the star. You ready? Let's do it. So left hand on the bar, same way to mount as the star prep. He really wants to start angling his weight forward over the bar. And then as he presses out, the arm and leg rise to the side and then returns, pulling the spring closed and again, pressing out and then return and then arm forward, leg forward and then return, arm forward, leg back as he presses out and then returns and then he'll step off the reformer. There is the fancy renversé. Garrett was not a dancer, so it's not in his wheelhouse. But as a grand finale, after you press out, the arm goes forward, the arm and leg go forward, then you circle, go into an attitude, you step down and do a little forward bow. That is on YouTube of Romana doing that from a film when she was quite young. So you can YouTube that for the extra credit special sauce fancy ending. But we've gone through the whole system, kind of working on skill building for the star. I really want to thank Garrett for being our model and working through all that. Nicole, Anna, anything, Ken, anything that you want to add?
Great job. I think that was so thorough, so amazing. I mean, I took copious notes.
So did
Thank
I.
you so much.
Yeah,
And
what a great exploration. I keep thinking about how when he goes to do side bends on the short box, he's gonna get so much out of it. Taking the time to build these bigger exercises with our clients is so important. And that was a wonderful journey, building it from the bottom up. I love the barrels and forming the shape. So he knew what he was looking for, gives him a little bit of freedom too. Yeah, it was a wonderful progression. And like I said, just taking the time to build these bigger exercises helps with that daily reformer that we do so that they have so much more to access in their body.
Trey, we got some shout outs here. Heather Ingram says, thank you from Seattle. This was brilliant. Susie Goluby, really awesome and thoroughly explained. Thank you. Victoria Mogalev, thank you so much. Fabulous. Christina Byrne, 3 gold stars. Catherine White, amazing. Thank you so much for this tremendous demonstration. There are no questions. That's how thoroughly well it was explained. But I will add a question because clearly that was 1 hour of possible ways that you could strengthen the body to do the star and also on different pieces of equipment. Given that, could you maybe give some, wait, there might be a question. Could you perhaps give some ideas? Because you wouldn't do all of them, clearly, right?
Oh no, we would skill build like
Right.
one notch in the belt at a time. You know, this is a slow and steady wins the race. It is Pilates as a practice. It's not a performance, which I think is especially important with these higher level exercises. We want to take the times with our own bodies, with our clients to build the skills inherent in these fancier things
That
over
being
quite some
said,
time.
as an example, would you perhaps do one, knowing that you want to build the skills to do the star, would you perhaps do one of the versions that you did, like the sidekicks, start building the sidekicks a little bit more
Yes.
advanced, and then perhaps work on the mermaid also, or go on to, I'm just looking at your list here, do a kneeling press on the Cadillac that day. And maybe do it a couple different things on different apparatus. One new thing each day that like the next time, like how would you layer it in as an example?
Yeah, you know, if I know that I want to start preparing a client, I mean, I think it's all client dependent for sure.
Of course.
You know, I think something I wanted to say on the Cadillac especially is that I think it's important to build the upper body strength and integration early on for our clients so that a lot of these higher level exercises are more attainable. So we'll be doing a lot of the things we do with our clients from day one, all the arm spring work we do on the Cadillac, you know, building in some of the push-up work. I mean, we really want to take the time. I mean, it's inherent in the long stretch series. We want to take the time using the system to build that upper body strength. And when I want to start going toward the star, yes, I'm going to pick like on the mat, I might start playing with the setup. And then, you know, generally for a client, we're doing a little mat, a little reformer, something special, and then ending in a session.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick a piece out of each part of the session and start to integrate that in over time, over multiple sessions, to be able to get them ready.
Okay,
Did
good.
I answer your question?
Yes, it did. Yeah, cool.
Hey,
Well,
Trey, I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to talk about your pacing and your clarity. It was phenomenal. And
Thanks, Ken.
and I really appreciate what you said about kind of building up to these more complicated exercises, because I think too many people just show those things and they don't kind of show what goes into building them up and getting to that point so that you can do them well and look nice. So I think that's really an important point. And then I also just wanted to say that when you were talking about the springs and Kathy Grant, it just made me reminded me of when I first met Kathy, like in 1889, and she was talking about springs. And it was when I was like brand new at this, and she was like talking about the springs and the experience and the interaction between the springs in your body. And I'm kind of looking at her and just thinking to myself, you know, what is this lady thinking, right? But it turned out that she was right. And fortunately, I learned that from her. So just kudos to you guys. Thank you for this.
Well, Ken, thank you so much
Yeah.
for giving us this amazing apparatus. I mean, it really is such a gift to have world class classical apparatus available to us.
Yeah. Thank you. My pleasure. Yeah. Well, I just want to say one more thing. You were talking about the foam. Of all the foams that I've been on all the equipment that I've been on, the foam that we use on the Contrology is my absolute favorite. Yeah, it's totally my absolute favorite.
It's a game changer. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes
Yeah.
such a difference.
Yeah.
You can't,
sure.
like, you can't cheat. You lie down on that mat, you're like, oh my gosh, my ribs
Mhm.
aren't touching on one side. Like, you just notice, you know? And
Yeah.
when you were talking about that, how you sink, you know, your push-ups, they can be so painful. You just feel like, oh my gosh, my wrists are sinking. And it's so much work just to pull out your wrist, let alone do the exercise, right? Just to even get in the right position is
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
foam, when it's right, you're already set up for success. So
Yeah.
thanks,
Yeah,
Ken, for
You
doing
can't
the
really build their foundation unless they have that feedback. So you don't really
Yeah.
get too far if you don't have the right
tools,
tools.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Well,
as a dancer, you don't have the right shoes.
Mhm.
You can't do the work if you're not wearing the right
Mhm.
shoes, you know?
Well, thanks
Mhm.
goes to Jay for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have some more shout outs here, Trey. Sharon Yee says, great job, thoroughly enjoyable. Karina Pulaski, Trey, absolutely profoundly, thoroughly, and fantastic love from your Milwaukee sister. And oh, Heather Ingram has another thought. Ditto on the foam. I'm so glad I switched to Contrology. It's changed mine and my clients' practice. So thank you, Ken. Oh my gosh, what a great session. I'm so glad you guys joined us, and I'm really excited for those who missed out today. When they watch the recording, they'll have a chance to see what they missed. For those of you that joined us, please feel free to take a screenshot and share it on social media. Just make sure to tag at contrology.bb. You will get a survey when you finish. There should be a survey that pops up. We love your feedback because we want to know how we did and how we can always do better for you. And if you like what you see, we usually put these out each quarter. So feel free to join us on our next Contrology Lab, as well as follow us, obviously, at contrology.bb and also on Facebook, and visit us at contrology.pilates.com. And if you want to join us in Chicagoland, we'll be there in October for Pilates on Tour Chicago. So we'd love to see you there as well. Ken, is there anything else I've missed?
No, I think you've got it. I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Garrett. You're amazing.
Yeah, Garrett is killing it there.
Yeah, unbelievable, especially knowing that you were practicing before you went on. That was incredible. That was incredible. Yeah. So thank you,
Yeah.
everybody. It's been really
Yeah,
fun for me.
thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
Thank
joining us.
you.
Nicole, thank you for your help. Trey, great job. Ken, as always, thank you for being our fearless leader and believing in this Contrology project and keeping it going and growing so much. From that first box of springs 7 years ago when I joined, look where we are now, guys. We have a full line of apparatus, and we couldn't have done it without all of you watching and our great, our authorized demo centers like Trey and Nicole who helped share the message. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks,
Have a
Nicole.
great weekend. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.